Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Rob Motive JT. So let's talk about cold air intakes, specifically cold air intakes on the Jeep Gladiator. You know, there's really three reasons to put a cold air intake on the Jeep Gladiator. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with the stock intake. If you like it, you want to leave it alone. But if you're into modding and things and want a little extra of one of these things, or maybe all three of them, there are a few reasons to do it. Number one, sound. Now, I'm going to get very specific on this because I've had more than one cold air intake in the past on a few different vehicles. And except for this one, the result has always been the same when it comes to sound. And that is hardly anything at all. Very disappointed. You know, I've watched a lot of videos myself on cold air intakes, and it always amazes me after I get one that maybe somebody suggests, put it on my vehicle, and then hit the gas and expect to hear something. And I hear hardly anything at all, if anything at all. Now, if you can hear mine in the background, I'll give it a little bit of gas here. Have a listen. What you're hearing there is all cold air intake. I don't have any kind of aftermarket exhaust or anything crazy on the truck otherwise. The only difference between this Jeep Gladiator and stock is the cold air intake. Now, I said I was going to get very specific on this first one, and I am. It's because of the air raid cold air intake. Specifically, if you're looking for more sound out of your Jeep Gladiator, you need to check out the air raid cold air intake. And I'll put a link down below. You can check that out if you want to find price availability as well as see the install and hear more of it there. Check out that link. But this one made a profound difference for me. And it's funny because I had a different one on my first Jeep Gladiator, and of course I was disappointed. And then my wife actually wanted to put an intake on her Jeep Wrangler. She picked out the air raid cold air intake. We put that on, and I was immediately shocked. I could not believe the difference in sound level that I got. What I was looking for with the cold air intake from air raid. Just amazing to me. Now, there is really one knock on that specific intake, and that is you basically have to take the whole thing off to change the filter in it. It's sealed. It has a small little window on top so you can see the filter, but there's absolutely no way you can get the filter out and put a new one in through that little kind of oval window on top. Kind of a drag. You have to take the front part off. The front part meaning the part that is facing the throttle body or the engine. And the only way to do that is to disassemble the intake from the throttle body back. It's not a horrible job to do, but you do have to disconnect some things, and it takes a bit of time to do. It's not a simple swap like the cold air intakes out there that have the tops that just come off. Or obviously the open, just regular intakes that you have access to the filter sitting right in front of you. So that's number one, sound. Number two, aesthetics. I mean, obviously when you pop the hood, if you're into modding and stuff, you want to see different kind of things under there, right? And there's nothing more profound than an aftermarket cold air intake. And there are a myriad of them that you can get. There are those that have the plexiglass window on top. You can see the filter down inside the intake. You know, if you park outside and mice have decided to build a nest in your filter, you can see it there. They look really good. There are those that have different colored pipes, you know, the tube that connects the intake to the throttle body, different colored clamps. I mean, all kinds of things you can do. And I love the look. When I pop the hood, I love seeing that underneath the truck, or underneath the hood, I should say. I hope it's not under the truck. I probably did something wrong. But I love seeing it under the hood. It's just, it just looks good. It's an aesthetic benefit that I think is well worth it alone. Even if you don't get the sound out of it, which is what I desire, it's still worth it to do. Now, one other thing before we get on to the third benefit of having one is another negative. You know, a lot of the companies out there will state that their cold air intakes will give you more horsepower. They'll give you better fuel economy. Now, to the nth degree, I would say that's probably true. And what I mean by the nth degree is when you put your Gladiator on a dyno, you know, a machine, you're testing it with sensitive equipment, you may see a jump in horsepower, but it's only going to be somewhere in the probably 15 to 20 horsepower range, something like that. Now, while that is an increase, it's nothing you're going to feel in the seat. And that's my problem with that statement that you're going to get a higher horsepower. Yeah, sure. If I drive around with a dyno attached to my Gladiator, I guess I could look at a readout and see that I'm getting better horsepower, but I can't feel it in the seat. Miles per gallon. This one I find funny, and I'm not even sure how they can come up with this number or these numbers, or increased numbers rather, even on a dyno. I've not noticed a thing with any cold air intake that I've had. I don't get better gas mileage. Definitely not something that I would buy a cold air intake for. I think if you're doing that, you're really wasting your money, and there is no reason to buy a cold air intake to think that you're going to get better horsepower or better fuel economy. Now, I mentioned a third benefit. The third benefit is satisfaction. You know, one of the easiest mods that you can do, in my experience, on any vehicle, and particularly the Jeep Gladiator, is the cold air intake. It's a simple bolt-on application. Really, the only thing you have to be careful of is the MAF sensor, the mass airflow sensor. You need to take care when you're messing with that thing. Make sure that you put it back in the way it's supposed to be, that you don't damage it when you take it out. It is a pretty sensitive and fragile looking device. If you ever really look at it, it's got this little wire on it that looks like if you just blew on it, it'd blow off. So you do have to be careful with that. And I think that's the biggest problem people have when they install cold air intakes, other than maybe disconnecting the battery. I don't know that it's absolutely necessary, but to avoid any check engine lights or little pretty lights on your gauge cluster, always a good idea to disconnect the battery, just to be safe. But the satisfaction that you get out of doing it, it's a simple mod. It's a good way to jump in if you're new to mods and you want something to kind of build confidence a little bit. Definitely go with the cold air intake. Simple to do, and you'll love the result, and it is something that you'll notice. Anyway, I just wanted to get on here, kind of run through those. Those are the 3 benefits to adding a cold air intake to the Jeep Gladiator. Leave a comment. Let me know if you agree. I'd be curious to know. Also, real quick, I do have 2 additional channels. Rob Motive, all about the Toyota Tacoma, and Mod Driven, all about the Honda Civic. Check them out, and if you're interested, why not subscribe? And while you're at it, smash the subscribe button here too. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.